Welcome to the Traitors a Traitors podcast. I'm Matthew, a writer and 100% Traitors superfan working in TV development. The Traitors features deep dives into every episode of English-speaking versions of the show, as well as interviews with contestants. And this season of the podcast is dedicated to the Traitors US Season 3. Today we are exploring episode 8 of the season, and to help me do that is my regular Traitors US co-host, it's David Bloomberg.
Hello, how are you? Better
I'm
than last week, hopefully.
Yes, last week. I think we didn't really address it on the pod,
No,
but I was a bit choked up. I wasn't feeling great, so maybe listeners noticed I sounded a bit strange last week, but I am feeling much better now. Thank
I
you.
mean you sound strange every week to the U.S. ear, you know.
Okay, stranger. I sounded stranger. David, how are you doing?
Good, good. Yes, for anyone who is tuning in for the first time and don't know me, I have been covering reality TV for over 24 years, pretty much anywhere anyone will listen or watch or read. Yeah, so hopefully you have found me out there in the wild and come to the podcast, or you came to the podcast and will now follow me out to the wild. Either
Yes.
way.
Right, and we discovered that even some people who know you fairly well online didn't realize you were podcasting about the traitors. How have they missed this? Now, before we get into a recap for today, we're going to set up our podcast game. This is the Traitor. The not so secret mission for David and I from here on in, as always, is to tell a sneaky lie to one another and to you listeners. I'm sorry. Last time I think my lie was about a listener question. I read out the question in the comment, but I attributed it to the wrong person. So the actual real person that got a bit miffed, they sent me a message online saying, "Hey, I was so mad when I was listening. You got it wrong," and then I realized it was your lie at the end. um, our lie has to be a fabrication, a made-up fact, big or small, about the traitors, about ourselves, or about listener comments. For example, I could lie and say that, oh, I've not prepared this in advance. I could lie and say that I've broken my
Yeah.
arm and that's why you can only see me from here up and I can't show David. I'm so embarrassed. However, I couldn't lie by saying that I didn't like this episode and I loved this episode. It was great fun. That would be a fake opinion. So we're looking for fake facts, false
Did
pieces
you
of information.
did you break your arm from patting yourself on the back from winning this game last week?
Yes, I may well have done. At the end of our episode today, David and I will guess each other's lie. And again, listeners, you can join in too and see how good you are at traitor detecting. David, are you ready to attempt to betray me, but then lose like last week?
Yes. And I'm not giving you something easy like I did last week. No more of that nonsense.
We'll see. And before we get into episode 8, maybe we've got just a couple of things to return to for episode 7 before we proceed. So I think we both had some comments online about the same thing that we were very foolish about.
Yes, yes. Last episode, we messed up. We mentioned that Boston Rob wouldn't say who won the Shield in his group, and we were like, why would he do that? And then he brought up Dylan's name as a potential murder target, and we were like, why would he do that? But we forgot to put two and two together because Dylan was the one who got the Shield in his group. I don't know how we forgot the marathon, rock paper scissors tournament, but you know, we have no excuse. We should have remembered. But I am going to say this. This is a problem with them separating the turret from the rest of the activities each day. This is one thing I don't like about where they break it. It's the same thing that happened on another show that I think was produced, at least in part, by the people who made the Traitors, called The Anonymous.
No, yes, yeah.
And they would have all this activity, and then at the end, it would come down to like two people who might be eliminated, and they'd leave it as a cliffhanger. And one of my comments and a lot of other people's comments online about the show was, by the time a week has passed, we don't care.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not the same here. We care here. But it was like it's so anticlimactic to do it that way. I mean, literally anticlimactic. The climax of a show is when you eliminate someone.
Yeah.
And so it is anticlimactic to leave us hanging. And, especially on the anonymous, because it was like the very first thing. Okay, someone's eliminated and you move on. And it's like, well, I don't even remember what they did last week.
Mm.
And clearly we suffered from the same thing here because we didn't even remember that Dylan had won the Shield. Again, we should have. It is our job to do so. But even the person who pointed this out to us on YouTube, I said, "Oh, well, I always skip the recap, so maybe it was in there." And they went back and looked at the recap for us and said, "No, it's not even mentioned there." So come on, production, give us some help here. If you're going to do that, they should have put it in the recap. Then we would be totally to blame. But now I'm blaming them somewhat.
Yeah. I'm blaming two things. I'm blaming the edit and I'm blaming my terrible memory. So I also I just my head's full of traitors that actually I can't retain it all. Quite regularly people ask me questions about
Oh yeah,
previous episodes and seasons, and assuming you would think that I would know a lot of this stuff. Even I'm like, I can't remember that. I don't know who won that one. I don't know. Well, not
yeah,
quite, but I forget lots of things about episodes, so I'm blaming my brain.
yeah,
Uh, there was something else connected to Rob as well. You were going to
yeah.
mention.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that we have criticized Danielle here for some of her gameplay, and it turns out she's been even worse than we saw. And again, remember, I love Danielle, but her gameplay has just not been great. Boston Rob has been hitting her pretty hard in his interviews, at least in clips that we've
Mm.
seen. Um, you know, we've thought she looked bad at certain times. It turns out the real situations, it was worse in at least one case. Because Rob said that in the urn smashing riddle mission, her photo was actually up there. So she was in the frame getting a shield. And then she won another riddle because she did so well at that and took herself down. So it wasn't just that she didn't put herself up, she actively took herself down.
Yeah.
And it's not clear to me why we weren't shown this. If this were Survivor or something like that, I would say, oh, this may be an indicator that this person wins because they don't want to show too many negative things about the winner.
Mm.
I don't see Danielle winning under any circumstance. I just don't. So I don't know why they didn't show it other than nobody was going after her immediately. So I really do suspect that, we've talked about this before. There's lots of discussions going on, but they only focus in on a couple that are going to end up being the
Yeah.
ones that are discussed at the round table.
Yeah.
And so I think that they put a little bit of that stuff in there to, say there's a little undercurrent of suspicion, but they didn't put the big honking thing in there.
Yeah. And I mean, on top of that, it's also just then fascinating how so few of them have picked up on that as suspicious or
Mm-hmm.
strange. I mean, I wonder if it's sort of gone full circle, like it's so obvious and strange that actually they think, well, she can't be a traitor because a traitor wouldn't do something that dumb.
I mean,
So,
almost, yeah, it's, almost under the radar or over the radar, I guess, like Carolyn.
yeah, yeah. Which I'm really excited to talk about in this episode. Okay, well, with that then, but let's get to it. Episode 8, Traitors US Season 3. Here we go. Our recap is hilarious in this episode. It's the most nuts like CGI like images of like the traitors in their cloaks with fire. Like it looks like a video game. It really made me laugh. There's these little moments at the start. Of course, in the previous episode, Boston Rob is finally gone, and five people are facing murder, and he face to face it's supposed to be a wedding. Is it a wedding slash funeral ceremony? It's both at the same time. Um, and even when the
Yes.
episode seems like it's starting, it's really just a continued recap of little shots we've already seen. Lots of slow motion shots, close-ups of these five people in the church, all turning around, making dramatic expressions. But we're still not going to find out yet who has
Wait,
actually been murdered.
who am I?
Are you Tom?
I am.
Yeah, Tom. He's he's just he's very dramatic all the time, so great sort of TV value.
Yes.
Um, so
I
yes,
have
it's
more on I have more about Tom's TV value later when we get to
oh, I
that
bet.
part.
So we don't find out who's going to be murdered. Of course, they're leaving us hanging as long as possible. We cut to breakfast. Danielle and Brittany are the first two to arrive. Danielle's sort of excited now. She's enjoying her role as the traitor a little bit more. She seemed to like the face-to-face murder last night. And she tells us, the viewer, the faithful will be shocked by the person that is murdered today.
Yeah, that was the moment that I realized my prediction that Sandoval was going was wrong, because they wouldn't be shocked if Sandoval were the one that was murdered because he was the one who had come after Rob so hard. So
Yeah,
as soon as she said it was going to be a surprise, I'm like, well, there goes that prediction.
yeah. It also fooled me and made me think that my prediction was correct. So I predicted last time that Dylan would go. So here I thought, "Oh, I'm right, I'm right. I was almost right. Not quite. Yeah, Brittany and Danielle also now they've got this alliance. Brittany says she trusts
Hmm.
Danielle. She's pretty sure she's a faithful. I'm, we just talked about Danielle in the last episode and these mistakes she seems to be making, but I'm so amazed at seemingly how well she's doing amongst the players, and she hasn't really. I think she's had like a couple of votes, maybe the whole season. Um,
So so here's the thing. Brittany saying she trusts Danielle and she's pretty sure she's a faithful. Okay, but on Instagram a few weeks ago, I believe I mentioned this,
oh
and
yes,
this is according to what I heard. I did not see it. I was told that it only to her subscribers, but that she said I knew Danielle was a traitor from the start. So either she's trying to make herself look better on Instagram now, and forgot that she had confessionals saying this, or she was lying in confessionals, whether because she didn't want production to know,
yeah,
or production said something like, "Well, what would you say if someone asked you, is Danielle
mm,
a faithful?" And she said, "Oh, I've known Danielle. I trust Danielle, and I'm pretty sure she's a faithful." And then they took it out of context. Um, which all of those things are possible. So yeah, it's a little bit weird, and I, I I had planned to say this later, but this is one of the times I kind of wish that the rules that are usually in place for these shows were in place for her here, which is don't talk about the show.
yeah,
There's no way a Survivor player would ever be allowed to go on Instagram and say, "Oh yeah, I knew that so and so was coming for me from the start, and therefore I, pretended not to." No, I mean, I think I've told the story before. I don't know if I've told it here. Of one time I accidentally got a player in trouble because I asked him. Uh, he had loaned someone an immunity idol, and I said, "Oh, did you get it back?" And he said, "Yeah, I got it back right away." And this was on Twitter. And he got a cease and desist letter from CBS because he gave away something that happened in the next show, even
yeah.
though it literally happened in the opening 30 seconds of the next episode.
Okay.
So yeah, there's no way that, someone would be talking like this about a show like Survivor. And I kind of wish we had that a little on the Traitors. I like getting the extra information, but then you get this where it's contradictory and you're like, mm, which
Yeah.
is it?
Yeah. And I guess it's different if, they have their kind of after show on YouTube.
Right.
And we see the the players who've been eliminated, finding out the truth about the traitors, and
Hmm.
sometimes they give us little
Right.
extra bits there, and that's fun. Um, but yeah, it feels a bit. I don't know. I don't know who to. I don't know what to believe. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows
Right.
what's going
Right.
on? Um, Next, then at breakfast, we've got Sam, Ivar, and Sierra are next, and Sierra's mad that she knows Rob was a traitor, and she's saying, "Oh man, he put me in that coffin in my nice outfit." We've got Sam.
Sierra was a willing member of the Boston Rob cult, and now she's upset that the cult leader lied to her. And it's
Yes,
like, come on.
she's mad. She was taken in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sam's getting more airtime again. He's sort of, and now I can kind of understand him a little bit better. I know, why he's
Hmm.
here, know what he's doing. He does say something quite interesting. He talks about being born in Iran and that when he came to the States, he didn't speak English. He says it's made him a good listener. He's good at picking up on things, observing people, and he even says to the others, the traitors probably aren't as smart as we think they are, which is probably 50% true.
Yeah.
So Gabby arrives. That means that she's, I think, the first one safe from the people who could have been
Yes.
eliminated. Tells the others about what happened last night. How did it actually play out? And she says, "Oh, the safe. If you're safe, you get to see Alan. If you were going to be murdered, you would turn around and see the traitors." So this gives everybody a bit of an insight into what really went down. The others are talking about their predictions. Mainly, it seems to be Tom or Dylan that they worry are gonna not
Hmm.
appear back. And then Tom arrives. They're all quite shocked. He's shocked, and he starts to like Gabby. Yeah, he is describing Alan and exactly what happened. He talks about Alan's shoes. And so that makes Sam pay attention and say, well, oh, that's really interesting that
Hmm.
you're, we believe you, that clearly that is what happened, even if you're a traitor. And he kind of deduces that if a traitor was one of these players who are up for murder, which is the
Right.
truth, we had Carolyn, he doesn't know that,
Right.
they wouldn't have taken part in this ceremony because why would they need to? So therefore, they probably didn't see Alan and won't be able to describe perfectly how he appeared.
Yeah, and that's where he loses. It's a good logic up to that point, but the idea that you're the traitor and you're not going to see the host,
Yeah,
that's the part that you're missing because undoubtedly, Alan went to the traitors and said, "Okay, where's your letter? Where's your, here, whether he or a member of production said this is what you're going to do, you're still going to see Alan at that point."
yeah. Well, I thought so. I sort of went back and forward in this. At first, I thought, no, no, this doesn't work. And then I thought, no, actually, maybe he's got a point. And I tried to think, would the traitors necessarily see Alan? They probably would. I mean, he doesn't come to the turret every night.
Hmm.
So I like Sam's thinking. I thought,
Well, doesn't
okay,
he? They hand off the envelope to him. At least we're shown them handing off the envelope to him, and then he goes and,
yeah,
places it, or
if
allegedly
that
places
really
it.
happened, I guess I'm
Right.
thinking, is that did they just film that a bunch of times one night and then you chop up the clips? But then that doesn't work when traitors get banished. I don't know. Yeah,
And he has to be in different outfits.
yeah. So I thought the traitors probably do see Alan, and I'm sure, and Alan must. The producers will tell them like, here's how it's going to work. Here's how it's
Right.
going to play out.
Yeah.
I think the producers would inform the traitors, yeah, so that they can be in the know. But maybe they don't actually see Alan or spend much time with him that night. I don't know. But
I
anyway,
mean,
it's a,
it's possible.
it's a
It's
nice idea.
possible. I would think that they'd at least be hanging out. They have to walk from the same area down the aisle.
Yeah,
So they're probably. I mean, there isn't a green room per se, but there's some holding area where they're probably hanging out.
yeah.
Um, I mean, my thing would be, and we'll get to this, of course, in a moment. But my thing would be, would I even remember? Even if I were a faithful,
Yeah.
would I
Uh,
remember? I would be so happy that I was safe. I wouldn't be studying what Alan was wearing, unless it was one of the outfits that was so outlandish,
yeah.
like the Statue of Liberty
Yeah,
outfit or
yeah.
or something like that. I, I wouldn't necessarily remember. I mean, I watched, admittedly, I'm sitting at home, but I watched the scene multiple times, and I think he was wearing a black hat, a black cloak thing, but that's all I could tell you.
Yeah, that's yeah. Especially not his, Tom's talking about his shoes.
Right.
I can believe that not everybody is looking at his shoes, and
Well, that's
that's
why
something you
Tom
might
went
not notice.
because of the shoes. It was the
Yeah,
shoes that made him do that, you know.
yeah. The only other thing that makes me think Sam might be onto something is the way that Danielle responds. And again, this might be shown a bit out of context. She seems to be quite worried for Carolyn when she's overhearing this. So that also made me think maybe they didn't see Alan, and that's why Danielle is suddenly going, "Oh, this could be a problem,"
I
because
think
she
she
knows
just
they didn't.
knows.
Or
I
maybe
think she
Danielle
just
just always looks worried and is worried about everything.
Well, I think she just knows Carolyn and is like, "Oh, I hope Carolyn appeared." You know, she's got to know the shoes. It's got to be the shoes,
Yeah.
as the old LeBron James commercial said. It's got to be the shoes.
That, as a Brit, that means nothing to me, David.
No, sorry.
Listeners, you'll all get it, unless it's David Lie.
Yeah,
So
it was an old
they,
Nike commercial. I'm trying to remember who said. It's He's a well-known director. He's a basketball fan. God, I can't remember his name now. But yeah, it's got to be the shoes.
I'll trust you. Uh, so Carolyn does arrive at breakfast, and of course they quiz her. They ask her about what happened, what was Alan wearing, and Carolyn does, I think, classic Carolyn of just looking
Hmm.
baffled and confused and doesn't know what anyone's talking about. And I was really nervous watching it. I really thought, oh, she's gonna blow it here. She's gonna say something like, "I didn't see Alan," or like something wild like Alan wasn't
Yeah.
there. She just sort of fumbles enough that it just I think looks like what Carolyn always looks like. And before she can really put her foot in it, no pun intended, Tom ruins it anyway. Tom just jumps in and is like, "Yeah, yeah, here's what he was wearing," and they're like, "Tom, stop it."
Yeah, okay,
Um,
that was hilarious that he is so clueless that even after the plan was explained to him, he still helps Carolyn with this. It just shows how Carolyn is not suspected,
yeah.
and then by the end of it, they're like, it was close enough.
Yeah, even Gabby says, she passed. Like, so
Yeah.
she just sort of, yeah, rambles enough, or they just are like, Carolyn's Carolyn, she's fine.
Where it's
Uh,
funny because, and this is not a spoiler, in this season's UK Survivor, Traitors, it's really not it's really not a spoiler for UK Survivor. Um, but she, one little thing like this, they'd have all jumped on her.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, there were several instances where they did this sort of thing, and it's like, tell me the exact details of this, and someone like didn't, and they're like, oh, you must be a traitor. We must get you.
yeah. I mean, I even think there's something in this episode later that the players jump on unnecessarily, but that's quite far ahead.
I mean,
So
there's a few things in this episode that players jump on for no good
I
reason.
guess they talk a little bit about Dylan. They're wondering if he's going to be murdered. Tom says, well, Dylan is a rogue voter. The traitors love a rogue voter. Next up,
Which was surprising. I mean, that is surprisingly insightful.
yeah, yeah. Uh, Dolores arrives next, which means that only Chriselle or Dylan could be the returnee. The door knocks, it opens. We get lots of reaction shots. They're very surprised, and we flash back what really happened the night before. We're sort of cross-cutting between Alan and the
Hmm.
traitors walking up the aisle. We've got Dylan turning around, we've got Chriselle turning around. In the end, Dylan turns, Alan is there, tells him, "You have evaded death for now." And then Chriselle turns to see the traitors with their hoods. They unhood. Of course, it's it's Carolyn, it's Danielle. Chriselle sort of seems devastated to be murdered. She doesn't have as much of a reaction as I thought she would. She doesn't sort of seem shocked and horrified that it's them. She asks why they murdered her. I did wonder, how much had they briefed on
Right.
how much can you talk? Like, do you hand over the letter and say nothing? Have they told Chriselle, you can talk, you can ask them questions? I mean, I don't see there's no
I think
harm.
one of them should say to her, get over it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll just leave that as a
We'll leave
joke
that
for
at that.
people who know what we're talking about. That's
Yeah.
all.
Um, I mean, there's no harm in Chriselle asking questions. Like, she's not
Yeah.
going to see anyone, so what does it matter? She asks why they murdered her. Carolyn says, "Girl, you were too faithful." She says, "You never would have been banished." And Chriselle just goes, "That's unfortunate."
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
it's the
See, and
funniest
that's when they
reaction.
should have said, get over it.
And Danielle even says, "It's the point of the game to do what we had to do. It is done."
Yes.
And that's kind of it. The traitors leave,
I,
and I thought that was it was over. No, no, Chriselle gets in the coffin and is
yeah.
is carried it. It was nuts.
I mean,
What's
I don't know that she was carried out. We see her getting in the coffin
well,
and they
yes,
carry
that's
out a
true.
coffin. I don't, they may have just said, get out. We don't want to carry a whole person, through
Like
here.
it's so ridiculously dramatic, but what makes no sense about it is that she gets in the coffin and we, apparently see
Right.
her being carried out. Cut to her sitting in a chair talking in an interview. So it's like either create the illusion that she's dead or don't. Like pick
Right.
one or the other.
Yeah.
So
And also,
she's
by the way, you don't often hear as someone is laid in a casket, my heart was pounding out of my chest. Because if your heart is still pounding, you're
yeah,
usually not in a casket.
you're not dead yet. Yeah, that didn't occur to me. That's fun. So bye bye, Chriselle. She's gone. Cut back to breakfast. Dylan arrives. Hey, and
Well, the
Gab.
one thing that Chriselle said in that interview you were talking about is I wasn't surprised to see Danielle, but she was shocked to see Carolyn. And she said, we're all idiots. She's playing the best game.
Oh, I sort of didn't pay attention to that because cynically, I just thought, she's gone. I don't care about her anymore.
Yeah. I
But
mean,
okay.
it is interesting because we've been talking about that a couple of the people in their reveals
Mm,
recently were surprised about Danielle.
yeah,
And one thing we said was, well, maybe it was just those couple of people. Clearly, Chriselle said she was not surprised, which
mm,
tells me there is some heat on Danielle,
yeah.
but there is still zero
On
on
Carolyn.
Carolyn.
Yeah, yeah. Very interesting. So she's gone. Dylan's here. Gabby sort of realizes why Chriselle is gone. She says, well, the traitors probably wouldn't have
Mm-hmm.
been able to use her as a scapegoat. They wouldn't have been able to, throw suspicion on
Right.
her and get her banished, which is seems to be the case. That is why they murdered her. Uh, Tom then says Chriselle never made her voting intention clear at the round table until, the job was already done. Some of the others get annoyed about it, like Sierra. She's saying, well, I could say that about Brittany, and they have a bit of a disagreement here. Uh,
Well, they're also going after him because obviously he and Chriselle never got along due
of
to
course,
him
yeah.
having cheated on her friend, or someone she knew. I don't know how close friends. And he's like, it's not a personal vendetta. It's just how she played. As if giving a million names and no one taking you seriously is better than giving no names.
Yeah.
Um, but the interesting and the foreshadowing part was, yes, as you said, Sierra saying, well, we could say the same about Brittany.
Yes, and yeah, it doesn't really take off in the end, does it?
No.
So Alan arrives. He takes down the picture of Chriselle, says hashtag thoughts and prayers, which made me laugh, and gives them their clue about the prize. He says, you have more pressing issues to attend to, such as building up your prize pot, or, as you Americans would say, get rich or die trying. And
I I would not say that. Just for the record, I would not say that.
yeah, it made them laugh.
Yeah.
And he tells them that, they should get ready for the mission and says, be a doll and do it quickly. So this does not count as a spoiler, right? I sort of guessed what
Yeah.
mission it would be
Oh
based
yeah.
on UK traitors. So I kind of knew it was
Yes.
coming.
The
Uh,
funniest part though was that everybody is like, "Ooh, a doll! It's something about a doll." And Sandoval is over there. Do it quickly, and they're all making fun of him. Like that's not the clue part, you dummy.
well, I mean, they did have a time limit, but they always have a time limit. So
Yeah. Time limit.
yes, in speech marks.
Yeah.
Uh, so we head off for breakfast. We spread around the castle for some discussions. We see a bit of the traitors in their confessionals first. Danielle saying, now that Rob is gone, she and Danielle can team up and run the castle. I, I I can't follow Danielle throughout the episode and the season. I never know where her head is truly, because sometimes we get her saying these things like, yeah, me and Danielle we're going to make it to the end, but then
Right.
does things. Then her actions suggest that's not the case, and she really is just looking out for herself. So I don't know what Danielle really feels. We've got Carolyn saying that, in general in life, she has a hard time trusting people. She still doesn't know if she can trust Danielle. She's taking it one day at a time, which I think is wise to not trust Danielle.
Yes.
We get some badminton outside. We've got Tom talking to a stag to ask it for answers, of course. Why wouldn't he be doing this?
Well, it's
And
funny because you know, he's back in clueless mode. He had his one time being on target with Boston Rob. Now he's talking to a statue. And it reminds me of two shows which have amusingly similar things going on. One was a recent show called The GOAT,
oh
which
yeah.
had returning players on there, and they had to say their votes into a goat statue's mouth. And then, in a bizarre coincidence, there's a show right now, the Joe Schmo Show. You've heard me talk about it,
Yeah, yeah.
where the fake reality show is called The GOAT,
Okay.
and the fake players have to whisper their votes into a goat statue's ear. So you had these two things being filmed at almost the same time. And now you've got Tom Sandoval talking to a stag. So he's
Okay.
apparently applying to be on one of those two shows.
Yeah, it's reality show upon reality show upon reality
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
It's the multiverse of reality shows. We had a show in the UK called Josh Must Win, and I wonder if that's some kind of like Joe Schmo. Josh Must Win was a fake reality show in which the contestants thought that they were on another show called The Favourite, kind of like Big Brother. They just thought it was like a reality show where they live in a house and you eliminate people and you're trying to end up
Mm-hmm.
with your favorite person. Like the winner will be the favorite, but actually what's happening is they're on a different show called Josh Must Win, and one player called Josh is sort of being controlled by a secret panel of celebrities who are influencing the game uh, to make sure that Josh wins the show. I will not spoil the outcome of that show in case anyone wants
It
to watch.
sounds like it's kind of given in the title, but um,
Uh, we'll see.
well, this is the opposite. This is not one. There is only one real person in Joe Schmo, and everyone else is an
mm,
actor.
yeah,
Even
yeah.
some of the producers are actors.
Hmm.
And it's by the I didn't realize this until she showed up in this week's episode, but it's also one of the executive producers is the executive producer of US Big Brother.
Ah, okay.
And so like it's funny because this week they the script had determined he should win the challenge. And
Yeah.
then he does such a crap job in the challenge, like it takes him forever. It's an individual challenge that they have to change the script because there's no reasonable person would believe that he won with the terrible job that he did.
Yeah.
So that's the funny part. It's not nearly as good as the original Joe Schmo, which was like 20 years ago, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Speaking of people being unreasonable, we cut to Tom in his in his interview. He's saying, actually, not totally unreal. I'm giving Tom a hard time. He says he can't understand. He's been thinking all this
You
time that
should
Dolores
just
is a
leave it at
traitor.
that. I can't understand. That
Yeah.
basically sums it up. Yeah.
He says that, he's been suspecting Dolores for quite a long time, but he's thinking, wait a minute. If Dolores really was a traitor, why would she be keeping me here? Like, surely she would have gotten rid of me now. And he's rethinking everything. He wants to go back to the start, track down all of the stories and whispers. Where did they all really begin? And we see him asking Carolyn, a couple of days back, you and Danielle had some beef going on at the round table. What actually really, he says, we just sort of forgot about that amongst everything else. Talk us through what happened. And she does. She says in her interview that she doesn't want to throw Danielle under the bus, but if someone asks her about it, she's not going to lie. She's not going to look like an idiot, so she's just going to tell them the truth, and she does. And she says, Danielle told this person and that person that I was talking about them and I wasn't. So I think that's wise of Carolyn to just tell, as a traitor, tell the
Yeah.
truth as much as you can. It's easier, I think, to tell the truth than to make up stuff. And I don't know how she would get out of that anyway with a lie. So
Yeah, and this is, you had said either last week or the week before, like, "Hey, what happened to all that stuff there?
yeah,
It never." And I said, "Nah, it'll come back." And so here it is. Eventually, people remember this stuff. I mean, it may have been simmering on the show beforehand. Um, it's slightly possible this even came from an earlier episode, although I doubt it. They'd have to do a lot of weird editing and cutting around, and people would be in different clothes. So now, the more I think about that, that's unlikely. But
yeah.
um, but it always comes back. Um, just like the very next thing, which is the coffin hypothesis, comes back again, and it's you know when people run out of ideas, they go back to their old ideas. And after getting rid of Rob, after he was the focus of attention for so long, they're like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
Oh, we have to go back to other things because we have literally no other ideas here. And I mean, we've seen it before on other seasons where people, for weeks, people will go back to, well, who was on the red team at the airplane mission? We have to narrow down the red team people on the airplane mission. And it's just like, oh, come on, people, move on.
Yeah, yeah. And in this episode, spoiler, it doesn't do them a a
Yeah,
service to return to something, but I think that's maybe for other reasons, which we'll get to maybe at the
yeah,
roundtable. Another conversation that's happening outside is with Sam. He's talking to Danielle, Ivar, and Dolores. And yes, this is exactly what you just said, David, that he thinks we should return to the coffin trial, the
hmm
theory that one of the three probably was a traitor. There's no, as far as I can tell, there is no actual logic to that. It's just this thing that players convince themselves of. Um, I
Well,
really,
they're still in meta thinking levels. They're on like second level thinking. Like, aha, if the traders would never put one of their own in there, so therefore they put one of their own in there.
yeah,
But the game has moved on. Now, were they right that if it had been up to Bob the Drag Queen, he would have put a traitor, in this case, Carolyn, in there? Yes. But Boston Rob was one of the ones who stood against it. He wasn't one pushing it.
yeah,
And Carolyn was like, no freaking way. And I think Sierra would have also been like, no freaking way. She does not seem like someone who is easily pushed over in that way.
yeah,
But one thing that Brittany talks about in this conversation is how Sierra was echoing everything Rob said.
yeah.
So that's how she knows that Sierra is a traitor. It's like, no, it just makes her a Boston Rob cult member.
Yeah. It just makes me laugh every time you call them cult members, as we say with our cloaks on.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking the same thing about our cloaks. I was like, hmm.
Um, yeah. I mean, I think, I mean, even though Brittany's wrong, I think her line of logic
Mm-hmm.
is more sensible by saying, "Oh, she voted for me as did and the only other person that
Right.
did that was a traitor, and we definitely know that now. Is that suspicious?" I think, I mean, it's easy for me to say from my distant perspective, but I think if I was a player, I just think speculating about, the coffin trial or
Mm-hmm.
death row or which or whatever they call it, different seasons,
Yeah.
trying to second guess, might a traitor have put themselves there? Might they not? It's just not it's not real. You'll never know the answer to that, and I just you can't. I don't think I would base my decision on that because it's neither here nor there. It's 50-50. It could
Right.
be anything. So
I
I
wouldn't
don't.
base my decision on it, but I think Brittany has some personal motivation because Sierra did come after her.
Yeah,
So if I were Brittany, I'd be jumping on anything I could to get rid of Sierra just because I don't need anyone coming after me.
yeah, yeah. Um. Also, by the way, I had to look up. I think I know who most of the players are, what shows they're from, Big
Mm-hmm.
Brother, Survivor. Sierra, I still couldn't remember what show she was from, and she was on Summer House, and it does come up
Yes.
underneath her name, but I looked her up. She was also on Winter House.
Yes. I saw the same thing. And first of all, before the Traders, I did not know a show called Summer House existed.
Yeah,
And
me neither.
then until I looked up something, it may have been Sierra, I did not know Winter House. I definitely didn't know Winter House existed.
Yeah,
So I guess they needed a spin-off, kind of like Below Decks and Below Deck Mediterranean and Below Deck wherever we can get a boat, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And
My
Real
kids
Housewives
watch,
of
yeah,
every
exactly.
state imaginable. Uh,
And apparently other countries too, wasn't Ayan
Dubai.
from Dubai?
Yes, yes, that's right.
Um, which I still don't know why they called her Ayan because that's apparently not her first name.
Yeah, it's like
Uh,
a middle name or a nickname or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they find a successful, franchise and they go with it. And I mean, I I've been tempted, I have to admit, to watch some of the Below Decks, but I
Oh,
still haven't done it. My kids did. I don't know if they still do, but both my sons like watched, I think, every season of Below Deck. Like they binged it.
yeah.
That's why one loved Kate and one hated Kate. So,
I
but
thought you were
yeah,
going
I
to
just
say, I have to admit, I've been tempted to watch The Real Housewives. And I
no,
thought, surely not, David. No.
no, surely
Um,
not. No.
but you've also just reminded me of something that, well, two things. I will ashamedly admit last week how wrong I got my prediction. I said in last week's episode, I think Chriselle's, she's here till the end. She's one of those players that's going to coast right through.
Yeah.
Of course, she's immediately murdered.
Mm.
And I've been predicting the wrong people who are going to win all along. Of course, Chriselle wasn't going to make it to the end and win. I don't even know if Carolyn's going to win. Kate Chastain's going to win. She's going to come
Yes.
back. They'll bring her back in the second last episode. They'll make her a traitor. She'll win. They'll have her every season. She'll just keep reappearing. So,
Are are you saying that because you know something? Because you don't get the previews.
I don't get
She's
the.
coming back next episode.
No, she's not.
Yes, she is.
Are you kidding?
You can judge whether or not I'm lying. I wasn't going to say it till we got to the previews, but she is coming back next episode.
I absolutely, if this is true, I did not know that. And no, I was thinking about the show during the week and about my predictions, and I thought, hey, Kate, I don't know what brought it to mind, and I thought, Kate Chastain, why haven't they got her back again? That would be fun. No, if that's true, I did not know anything about it.
Yes.
I'm the psychic of They don't have a psychic this season, so I'm the psychic. That was
They almost never have one on US,
well,
do they?
yes, they're not. They would need to be a
Yeah.
celebrity psychic,
Yeah.
like the New Jersey lady with the big hair.
Yeah.
I don't know her name, but I see her on Instagram a
Like the
lot.
Long Island Medium or
Yes, sorry,
something like
Long
that.
Island Medium. Not maybe that's not New Jersey, that's New
Yeah.
York.
Let me
Uh,
tell you, if she ever showed up on the show, well, she wouldn't because she is smart enough. She knows how to grift her grift.
yeah,
She
she
knows
wouldn't
how.
ruin her reputation,
Right.
unless, of
Exactly.
course, she truly is gifted and she would win.
Like I said,
David.
she's grifted, not gifted.
That's a good title for a show. Grifted, not gifted. Right, I'm going to
Or
pitch that next
or
week.
you could say grift or gift. There you go. You
Yeah.
could pitch that. I'll work with you. We'll come up with something here. I just want an
Um,
executive producer title. That's all.
I would make a note of that, but my pen exploded while we've been talking. This is all that's left. I don't know if you heard the
I
noise of a million
No, I
pieces
want to
just
see the
falling.
rest of it though, or else I don't believe you. I could see you unscrewing it to make sure to make that your lie.
Here's a
I want.
bit. Here's a bit. It just all fell in pieces on the floor a minute ago. Anyway, um, that wasn't my lie. I have a reserve. Anyway, this is not interesting for the people who are listening, but for people who are watching, maybe you spotted me bursting my pen in the middle of that conversation. So,
Would
meanwhile,
have been funnier if it like blew up into the camera. Like what is that flying across?
uh, we've got, I mean, the final thing before the mission is that Sierra thinks that uh, Danielle and Brittany's alliance is a bit suspicious and that needs
Mhm.
to be broken. And she delivers the line that actually is the name of this episode, which is
Yes.
"A bitch is lying."
Yes.
I saw that was the name of the
Yeah.
episode when I started watching it, and I thought that's really funny. And
Yeah.
I thought, oh, maybe the mission today will be something to do with dogs. Like Alan's dog will play like a really important part. But no, it's just Sierra being Sierra.
Well, it's
So
funny because I was just well. First of all, before I go on my tangent, I will say this is a real good point by Sierra, because we've talked about this before. It doesn't so much matter if one or both are a traitor. They're an obvious duo, and that makes them too powerful.
Yeah.
So they should be split up whether one is a traitor or not, quite honestly. Um, but as far as is Alan's dog, I was watching a UK mystery show, and now I'm trying to remember which one it was. Oh, it was Unforgotten. The new season of Unforgotten just came
Okay.
out. Um, and there's a guy who has some problems, and he walks up to a woman and says, "Is that a dog or a bitch?" And I'm like, "Is this something like, is it because of what's going on inside his head? Or is this a UK thing where they just call male dogs dogs and female dogs bitches?" We're saying that word way more than I would expect to on this show. But is that a
Um,
UK thing?
Not really. I would also find that a bit strange if I heard it. So not really. I would just call all dogs dogs. No. So
Yeah. Okay.
it's quite an unusual line. Yeah.
Okay. Well, and I think it was meant to be from that person. It's like how we meet this person and learn he's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Um, so yes, sorry people for the tangent. This is where I get all my UK, language
Lingo.
news. Yeah. So, we provide this extra service to you as well.
Yeah. Also, I'm like a free translator, so
Yes. Yes.
although I'm maybe better with Scottish
Yeah.
than English. It's time for the mission then. Speaking of Scottish, Alan's back. Hooray! We meet Alan outside.
I'm
See,
even drinking Scottish. This is whoop, you can't see it. Where
oh,
is it?
it's an invisible drink.
Yeah. Here. There we go.
Oh, oh yes.
It's my chocolate blend is called the Highlander Grog. I don't know why they named it that, but that's
Oh,
the name of this particular drink.
I
So
drink Highlander grog every day. That's totally normal. We all drink that.
and that's your lie.
That was a joke. That was not a lie. Doesn't count. We meet Alan outside the castle then. Wow, we've had some tangents today.
Yeah.
And he explains the mission that they have to split into two teams. Five will go with Alan and five will stay in the castle. Only the players who go with Alan, though, may be able to win a shield. So they discuss, well, who's not had a shield before? They try and make it fair. They do a bit of rock, paper, scissors. Meanwhile, we've got Danielle telling us. Here's where I'm saying she contradicts herself. She
Oh
wants
yes.
5 minutes ago she was like me and Carolyn, we're a team, we're going to make it to the end. Now she says she wants to be on the Shield team to find out who wins the Shield, and she doesn't want Carolyn there so that she can keep the truth from her. So she's gone back on herself already.
She this whole episode, I mean, we'll get to more of it, but she talks out of both sides of her mouth. And it's look, lying in the game, I totally understand. Okay, you say one thing to one person, one thing to another person. But telling us I want to go to the end with Carolyn, and then telling us I want to lie to Carolyn to protect Brittany, it's like, what are you doing? What is going on here? I don't understand.
Yeah. I mean, unless both of those things are true and she sort of means I want to go to the end with her and then double cross her at the very last minute. It's not really what she seems to be saying. So
Yeah,
I don't know. I think yeah, she seems to be changing her mind, you know, every few hours.
right.
So in the end, the Shield team becomes,
Later, it's every few seconds. But
well,
yes, we'll
yeah.
get to that.
The team who are going to go off to the woods with Alan are Danielle, Brittany, Sierra, Ivar, and Tom, which means the remaining players in the castle are Dylan, Carolyn, Dolores, Sam, and Gabby. Alan explains what the task actually is. There'll be dolls that will be singing backwards. Um, he gives them an example, and the doll is singing "London Bridge is Falling Down." David's, will Americans know this?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
oh yeah.
I just thought it was like a super Englishy British thing.
No,
Okay.
no, that is a well-known little preschool song.
Okay. So
So,
that means this again, I do not count this as a spoiler. They didn't need to make new dolls for the American version compared to the UK one. It's they've been able to use the
although
same ones.
Although some of these dolls shoot water at the players.
Oh,
I I
I
do
don't
not
remember
remember
that.
that.
Yeah, I thought that was
Um,
new. Yeah.
and I wonder if it's one of those things like the bugs last week of, haha,
Mm,
we're going to get these housewives in there and these other people in their fancy outfits and do stuff to them.
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know why it didn't happen in UK because it's still funny either way.
Yeah.
Um, Also, I don't remember there being literal decoys. Like I know in UK they had dolls that just gave insulting messages or
Yeah.
scary messages. But like the first doll that Ivar tries is apparently a decoy, a total
Yeah.
decoy. Like all it does is wah wah wah.
Yeah. I mean, some of them, the real ones sound like wah wah wah, but
Yeah. So
yeah.
I don't know if he just didn't do a good job and then circled back to it. I don't remember that. I think it was a decoy.
Yeah, that caught my attention as well. I thought maybe that was a slightly new change to the game. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe listeners who have a better memory than me, you can send us a message. So yeah, what the Shield team in the woods have to do is listen to these dolls singing, memorize it, sing it down the phone to the castle team. There's lots of stages, and then they have to re-sing it into a gramophone, play it in reverse, recognize what song it is, phone the other team back, get them to tell. There's a lot of
Yes.
steps. I'm amazed that they actually do get it. Like, to me as a viewer, it looks actually incredibly difficult to get right, but they in the end manage some of it.
Yeah.
So yes, Alan tells them some are decoys, reminds them about the shield. We get the return of Baba Ya 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 that will delight any UK viewers. I'll say no more. I just laughed all the way through this.
Yes.
Um, Brittany says that, when they start the task, that everyone's kind of pretending to do it, but really they're just looking for the shield. And Dylan even guesses in the castle. Maybe that's why it's taking so long as they silently wait by the phone. Uh,
Yeah. And
Tom,
Brittany's right. She says flat out, I'm only in this for the shield.
yeah,
And it's like, and she's like, maybe we'll get some nursery rhymes. I don't care. And that is the correct attitude. Again, you cannot win if you don't make it to the end.
yeah,
And so going for the shield is job one.
yeah. I mean, I guess there's the problem of, well, maybe it is what partly ends up becoming an issue, although they don't address it in the edit. It is going so hard for a shield.
Yeah.
I don't think it should be suspicious, but will some
It
of the players
becomes.
interpret
Right.
it as suspicious
Right.
or think it's an issue? Tom is the only one who seems to be actually trying to listen to the dolls. Brittany says he's having an out-of-body experience. It's, we just get lots of like comedy moments
Yeah.
of him trying to sing these insane, nonsensical songs.
The
It's
funniest one is at the beginning when he, so Tom is out there singing, and then he calls Ivar over, hands him the phone as if he's got to stay, someone has to stay on the phone. And Tom runs back to the house, and Ivar's just standing there with the phone, no idea what he's supposed to do with it. And Alan's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I don't know." And I was like, "Come on, man, go do something."
yeah, it really made me laugh. Yeah, that Alan is just like, what they're doing it. This is a shit show. Like
Yeah.
even he's just like, what the hell are you all doing? And
Um,
there's also a really funny moment with Sam on the other end of the phone listening to Tom, and he just goes, terrible singing.
yes, yes. So, two things here before I get to the terrible singing. One, you talked about Brittany and her confessionals. Brittany is known. It is what she is best known for on Big Brother are her confessionals,
Mm,
and it is great to see her back in her element. Just you know, doing this because it's been so long and it hasn't been featured as much, and she is just on point. She's the star of this episode, as far as I'm concerned, in what she does. Um, as far as people, including her, making fun of Tom singing, he was actually on a show that you are very familiar with, The Masked Singer.
oh, doing what? Like as a singer?
as a singer. This was pointed out to me on Blue Sky. I did not know this. Uh, he was on 2 years ago as the diver, which was some sort of old time like
Oh, with like a
scuba helmet,
yeah,
like
yeah,
those
yeah.
big heavy helmet things. It even had an octopus on his head. Um, and he apparently they had the same opinion of his singing as well because he only made it to week 2.
Oh,
Um, but yeah, I in looking that up, I also saw on a non-singing thing he was in season 2 of Special Forces, the world's toughest test, which I did not know because I only watched season 1 and it's a terrible show, and I really should have stopped a few episodes into that. But uh, yeah, so he's been making the reality TV rounds a lot more than I realized to try and kind of get back into good graces.
yeah. That's Bob the drag queen was on Masked Singer US, but I didn't know about Tom. I didn't think Tom was like famous enough, but
Well,
unless
I
this is your lie, of course.
hmm. And apparently Ken Jung, I don't know
Yeah,
how to pronounce his
the
name.
host, yeah, or one of the
No, one of the
panelists.
judges.
Yeah,
He apparently guessed it right. And then someone else, and I only know this by reading an article about it. Someone else jumped on board and guessed that with him. So,
yeah.
um, but yeah, it was. He only made it 2 weeks, which is probably why you didn't know it.
I think Tom does an okay job of. I think he sounded quite nice.
I mean, you're singing backwards. How bad can it be? Even or how good can it be? I guess.
Yeah, I mean it works. They match some of
Yeah.
them up. They match Wilhelmina to Row 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 Your
They
Boat.
they match all of them up. They got all four.
Yes, we've got the Muffin Man, Three Blind Mice. In the middle of it, we've got Sierra suddenly looking down and seeing the bear outside. It's sort of
Yes.
half buried in leaves, and it has a little label saying bear, which might be conspicuous. She picks it up, she finds the shield attached, and she it's quite conspicuous. The others who are
Right.
there, apart from Tom, they notice it. She's
Hmm.
not really hiding it. And Danielle then in her confessional says this thing that I don't think makes sense. She says, of all people, I didn't want Sierra to get the shield. And I thought, well, why not? Like she's
Maybe she was
like
planning on murdering Sierra. Except
yeah.
she.
So I thought Sierra's a great person to keep in the game. Like
Right.
she's you know, Danielle was in
As
the
we saw, she had a
conversation.
lot of attention on her.
Yeah. And Danielle was in the conversation with Sam earlier, who was saying, I'm going to go for Sierra tonight. So if I was Danielle, I would want Sierra to be in the game as long as possible because people are, putting her name about. So
Yeah.
I don't know why Danielle like was mad that Sierra had the shield, but um they find one of the other dolls is Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. Brittany's upset that she didn't get the shield, but she's glad she has the memories of Tom singing forever. And she does a little impression. Sounds a bit like, ironically, sounds a bit like sort of Britney Spears, which there's a connection to Sam. Is Sam triggered by
Yes.
hearing this? I don't know.
Yes.
So, Alan closes the mission by telling them that they won $20,000. And,
Well, wait, you missed the most important
oh,
part.
sorry.
They got Twinkle Twinkle Little Star with under 10 seconds left on the
Oh,
clock.
yes, of course. Yeah.
Shockingly, I was so surprised.
Amazing skills there, just in the nick of time.
Hmm.
Uh, Alan also tells all of the players that a shield was won, but he'll leave it up to them to announce if, who found it if they
Right.
want to. And walking back from the house in the woods, Ivar, yeah, Tom didn't know who had the shield. Ivar
Hmm.
just tells him, and he says, "Yeah, we all know it's not really a secret
Yeah.
amongst us anyway."
I mean, for Ivar, nothing's ever a secret. So,
Well, that's true.
except maybe the point of this game. But
That's very true. In the Jeeps, on the way back, Sierra is asking Tom and Brittany about the round table. Tom sort of, I think, pretends. He just says, I'm at a loss, so I don't know what to do. And Sierra tells us, the viewer, that she suspects Brittany. She says she's too quiet, she lays low. Meanwhile, in the other Jeep, Ivar's telling Danielle that people are going for Sierra tonight.
hmm.
And now Danielle now seems to realize, oh, maybe I should vote for Sierra
Yeah.
tonight.
Yeah.
So she's sort of a couple of hours behind everybody else, but it's okay. Back at the castle, then Sam is reiterating his theory about Sierra. He's talking to Carolyn and Gabby. Gabby, on the other hand, thinks that yeah, Danielle and Brittany have this suspicious friendship. We should be worried about that. And Carolyn, in her confessional, says, yeah, she at some point wants to get rid of Brittany. In the
Yep.
house, yeah,
Yeah, but by the way, I think it's kind of funny. The castle team gets to start dinner right away. Like they don't even wait for the dollhouse team. They're all sitting down and eating dinner. The dollhouse team is still, I don't know where they are. I thought they were on the castle grounds, but however far away they are, they're still trucking back and everybody else is sitting down to dinner. I'm like, well, that's rude.
yeah, it's like the Viking boat mission all over again.
Right.
They're
Yeah.
toying with them. No pun intended.
Yes.
Toys, dolls. See what I did there. So in the house, Dylan, he's still suspicious of Brittany because of what Derek said before he went. I still don't understand why that's a big deal. That anyway, and I've already
I
talked about
mean,
it last
like I
episode.
said, when you're grasping at straws.
Yeah. Carolyn and Sierra talk alone. They're talking about Danielle and Brittany's closeness. I get, yeah, Sierra doesn't trust Danielle's
Hmm.
theatrics. And she also remembers that Jeremy did accuse Danielle of being a traitor before he was murdered. So that's a bit suspicious. So, yes, she is onto something here. Ivar, Dolores, and Sam are talking in the kitchen about this idea that we see quite often in the traitors. Well, there have been two male traitors so far.
Yes.
I actually do. I get why you would think this way. It's not necessarily proof, but if you've got nothing else to go on, they're saying it's likely there's a female traitor. What I don't quite understand in this episode is why everybody comes to the conclusion that there are two female traitors. Like they seem to
Did
just
they?
collectively,
I
or
don't know
some
that
of
they
them.
I don't know that they did, or they're just saying it has to be one of these two. I didn't get that they were saying there were two female traitors. I was getting that they were saying it has to be one of these two.
Maybe I read it wrong then. I thought, especially by the time we get to the turret,
Hmm.
Danielle is saying they think there are two females.
I mean,
And
maybe
one
she
other
read it wrong.
person's maybe yeah yeah. But anyway, it's a reasonable assumption to make that there's probably a female traitor at this point.
Unless you've seen the Traitors UK. Yes.
Yeah. Um, and so these people in the kitchen think they should go for Sierra. It's another reason to go for Sierra tonight.
Hmm.
At this point, Sierra appears, and she brings along her suspicions of Danielle, and it seems like maybe it's the edit, but I think they're being a bit coy with Sierra, and they're not really telling her exactly what they were just talking
Oh
about.
yeah, definitely.
So it's time for the round table. Heading in, Dylan suspects Brittany, but he knows that he's been wrong before. He knows that he might have to adapt at the last minute. And Carolyn says, "Look, I know there's no suspicion on me. If Danielle gets some heat, I'm not going to go out of my way to defend her. That will bring me unnecessary attention." And
And she
also,
adds, yeah,
uh,
that she wants Brittany gone again, so Danielle will stay more loyal to her, which
yeah,
that is a very typical survivor thing that doesn't usually work out, especially if you're the one who's behind it. They'll be like, oh, I'm going to vote, this person is getting close to that other person. I'm going to vote out that other person so that I'm the only ally here.
yeah,
But if
yeah,
you're the one who leads the charge, then it doesn't usually work out.
yeah,
But the way Carolyn's talking about it is kind of like, well, if it happens.
yeah. I mean, it would also look. She's never going to really openly defend Danielle at round table because
Right,
a couple of episodes back she
right.
really came at Danielle. Alan arrives then. He doesn't scare the shit out of Carolyn this time. I think she's
Yeah,
like prepped for it.
yeah, exactly. She opens her eyes a little wide, but other than that, she doesn't jump out of her chair.
Yeah. He reminds them that in the final, the banished players won't reveal their status. He's sort of using this to provoke them and insist, you must find traitors now. Of course, it's all just nonsense. They don't have to. It's not going to really help at all if they find
Well,
traitors now. They'll just recruit new people.
as a matter of fact, yeah, that's my note. It's now he's actually just 100% wrong. Now is not the time to root out the traitors because the remaining traitor we'll just recruit or blackmail a new one, and the faithful will have zero idea who it is.
Yeah, exactly. So it's time for the discussions. Sierra begins and just says, right, I know that people are talking about the coffin and I was in the coffin and that makes me a traitor. She knows that this is doing the rounds again. There's another pun. And there's lots of puns about coffins and nails and coffins and lids on
Mm-hmm.
theories throughout this whole round table. And Ivar says, well, it wasn't just the coffin incident. And he says, we believe that the remaining traitors are likely to be girls. And Tom jumps in and says, well, at least one anyway. And then he sort of puts his foot in it
The
and says
moment
this.
of the episode right
Yeah.
here.
He says women are better cheaters than guys because they have more social skills. Everyone else, they lose their minds over this. I don't really know the full backstory. I guess that Tom like cheated on someone on a reality show and that's why
Yes.
he's an unpopular character.
Yes.
They all lose their
There was
minds.
a
They're like,
whole, there was
you're
a,
saying this?
yeah, I mean, there was a whole, his name is Sandoval, but people call him Scandoval because
Okay.
it was a scandal, I guess. I don't fully understand the whole backstory of that. But yes, he cheated on his longtime girlfriend with someone else. I was reading up on it and it said he did this even behind the production's back.
Hmm.
So when it came out, it was a whole big thing. So yes, yeah,
Yeah,
that's why he's having to go on all these reality shows to make his try to
rehabilitate his image.
yes, rehabilitate. Exactly. So for him to say, at least historically, girls are better cheaters than guys, it's just like, of all people, biggest Freudian slip in the history of the game, maybe in the history of reality TV.
Yeah, I think so. They all go nuts, and he's like,
Yeah.
I meant traitors, not
Well,
cheaters."
first he said, I said traitors. And then as soon as they're like, no, you did, he's like, well, I meant traitors, And it's just like, oh, yeah, I have a video getting ready to come out on this one. I may post it. I think I'll post it today. Of course, Peacock posted it immediately, as a scene. So
Yeah,
I
of
had to add
course.
my own twist to it. I have a little slow mo in there of him saying it again, just to emphasize, make it a little different.
Yeah, I mean, I think I know what his point was supposed to be. I mean, he was trying to spin it in a positive way and say women are better with words and understanding interactions. He says something about they have better social skills, so they
I
would.
thought he said social status.
Oh,
And I think
okay,
and I believe, since I've, recently gone through it multiple times, I believe that's what the closed captioning says
okay,
as
okay.
well, is social status, which
Which
also
is
made me
strange.
scratch my head because I didn't understand what that meant. So
Yeah,
maybe he meant
maybe he
skills
meant
there as
social
well.
skills.
Yeah,
Sort of like emotional intelligence.
right.
I think his point was, I think his point was supposed to be women might be like more clever about like getting away with things or something. But it goes completely south. It does not work out for him, and you know, yeah, they're laughing at him because of his history that I've kind of figured out and pieced together. So Sam
Yeah, I
then,
just double checked my draft video here, and he says social status.
okay, okay, yeah, strange choice of words.
Yes.
Sam thinks, kind of like last week, he says, well, if we've got this theory about the coffin, we'll never know the truth. But let's just chase it down now. If there's a theory that just keeps
Hmm.
resurfacing and people can't forget it, we might as well put it to bed. Which
Which is
I,
great logic for him, not so great logic for Sierra. I mean, it's similar logic to what Brittany said about Rob last time, which is if you get rid of me, you're just going to have this whole discussion again. And it's true, and in this case, it was right. But for for Sierra, I mean, I'd be pissed if I were playing this game and people are like, "Well, we just have to vote you out to close that loop." Sorry, you lose. It's like,
yeah.
no, wait.
And again, based on something that I don't think is proof of anything. I think it's just complete theorizing, um, with nothing to really back up.
It
Uh,
is, but also speaking of social skills, hers are not great. She admits later, she when it comes to fight or flight, she fights,
yeah.
and And there are times where she just doesn't make the social niceties that she needs to. And this is, of course, a strategic social game. So, yeah, it's mostly because of that, but also I think there are other people who might have been able to talk their way out of it, whereas she's just like, "Screw you, I was not," you know.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, Brittany and Sierra then have this interaction because they suspect one another. Brittany
Right.
says, "Sierra, you voted for me along with Rob. You were the only two people last time." And Sierra comes for Brittany and says, "You skate by at round table. You haven't had a voice," and says that would make you a good traitor because the two traitors we found so far have been big characters, loud,
Mm-hmm.
outspoken. Bob the Drag Queen, Boston Rob. It makes sense that another traitor would do the opposite and be very, very quiet. And Brittany, I actually think makes a good point and says, no, laying low is the sign of a faithful too. You want to avoid murder every night. You don't want to stand out. The traitors don't need to worry about that, so they can be a little louder. So I thought that made sense.
It's a good point, except the two people she uses examples have been banished. So it's like the two people can
Yeah.
stand out. Yeah, and then they get banished. So
So
maybe that's
they're
not
not
a
good
good
traitors.
idea for
Yeah.
a traitor. Yeah.
Yeah. Sierra then has this other point to raise about Jeremy way back in episode one or two or whenever it
Right.
was. Jeremy accused Danielle and then ended up murdered. Danielle defends herself with what seemed like good points. I just wonder if it seems too prepared. Like she's sort of so quick to, as if she's
Yeah.
she's readied herself in case anyone comes at her. So she reminds them, well, I voted for Rob twice. That would be strange if I was a traitor. And I couldn't believe it when Jeremy accused me. She says also, I was really close to three of the people who were murdered. Ian, Bob H, Derek. Why would I have murdered those people that I'm close to? So I thought that was a good defense, and it obviously
Mm-hmm.
works. No
Right.
one votes for her. Yeah, I did just wonder if it was too perfect defense, like she's had time to consider this. I don't know. Maybe not.
I mean, I would hope that people would think about things ahead of time and they wouldn't use that as a, oh, you were too prepared,
Yeah,
but
yeah, I guess.
you never know. Like,
Yeah.
in this show, anything can happen.
And I'm reading this from my
Mm-hmm.
perspective, knowing she's a traitor, and.
Right. Right.
Tom then comes back to Sierra in the coffin and he talks about how she was swearing and she was like too confident. We saw a little bit of that back at the time. And Sierra says, I don't need to try hard to be a badass, and talks about what you mentioned. She goes into fight or flight mode. Or when that's faced with her, she goes into fight mode, I should say.
Right. Right.
Ivar keeps going on about the coffin and suggests, well, Bob the drag queen and Rob, they were loud and confident. I think they convinced you to get in the coffin. Sierra calls bullshit on this. She says, I'd never be told what to do like that. No way would they get me in if I didn't want to do it.
Yeah,
And
which, yeah. Oh, there's no way Boston Rob could convince her to do anything after she literally spent however many of the past few episodes being convinced by Boston Rob to vote a certain way and
yes, that's true.
believe what he was selling. So,
Yeah.
mm,
And she uses this metaphor. She says, I know you want to close the metaphorical lid in that coffin, but if you banish me, and says the thing that lots of people say all the
mm,
time. I'm just going to stand up there and say I'm a faithful,
yep,
which is true, but anyone, traitor or
anyone
faithful,
could say
could
that.
say
Yeah,
that. It doesn't really mean anything.
yeah,
So, time to vote. Dylan begins, and I immediately wonder, I always try and pay attention to where do they
yeah.
start the vote? Who does that mean is going to be left at the end? What does it mean? It means that Sierra is going to be the final vote because she sits on the other side of him. So I wonder, does that reveals why are they leaving her to last? Is there
Hmm.
something in it? I guess maybe there is. He votes for Sierra, and I think he says something like, "Oh, I don't really know if it's you, but I'm going to have to just, yeah, this coffin theory."
Yeah.
Carolyn then votes for Sierra and
And this
echoes
is
the same
when,
kind of thing.
yeah, and this is when I know, okay, Carolyn wanted Brittany out. If she's voting Sierra, then it's obvious that it's Sierra.
Yeah,
And boy, was it obvious. It was even more obvious than I thought.
yeah, it's. I mean, it's almost unanimous
It,
because
I mean,
the only person who doesn't vote for Sierra is Sierra.
yeah,
It's
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 as
unreal.
unanimous as it can get.
Yeah. they on it go, Sam, it's not a surprise,
Yeah.
and Ivor, but then even Dolores says, look, she says, I voted for you because my real sort of vote wouldn't save
Hmm.
you. I
Which
don't
is a
know.
weird thing to admit
Yeah,
because
like I'm voting with, yeah,
you're basically saying something nice for Sierra, but you're also acknowledging to everyone else, I didn't really want to. I mean, I guess if you're like a traitor trying to hide, the reason that you're voting for someone so no one can turn around and say, you knew that,
mm.
but it's Dolores. I just don't get the point of saying that, but okay.
And I wonder who she did want to vote for. Is it just
Right.
Tom? Like, because she doesn't like Tom? What?
Yeah, who knows?
Um, and yeah, on it goes. Danielle.
I mean, that may be the first time we've mentioned Dolores's name in this whole thing, other than when you said she walked into breakfast.
That's true, yeah. Yeah, I feel like I don't really know that much
Right.
about her. I don't think she's having much impact on the game. While all the votes come in for Sierra, we sort of cut to her interviews saying they've confused my fight mode for being guilty of something,
Hmm.
talks about being raised by a mom who had to figure things out on her own and got what she wanted because she stuck to her guns. She says that her mom didn't raise a weak bitch, which also made me laugh, even though it probably wasn't supposed to. It's a landslide.
Yeah.
Sierra finishes by voting for Brittany, stands up to give her speech and says, I don't really do speeches, but I'll always go down
Hmm.
fighting. I'll never succumb to anyone, even the traitors, because I am a faithful. Off she
Yeah.
goes. The others are it's a mixture of sort of really gobsmacked and shocked. Some of them just look
Hmm.
completely defeated. Sam says, we messed that one up. I think he means I messed that one up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So he's just sort of spreading that out amongst them. I mean, they all did vote for her, but
Right.
sort
Right.
of led quite early on this one.
The thing about Sierra talking about, I don't remember if it was confessional or in her final words about, she went into fight mode when she got in the coffin, and maybe that was the wrong move. Back at the time, I thought it was the wrong move and I called it out. I'm like, why would you say that to the traders as they're about to decide who to come
Yeah,
after?
yeah,
Turned out it wasn't the traders who got her, it was literally everyone else.
yeah, yeah.
But it was because she said something and wasn't murdered by the traders. I mean, she called out the traders, said, I'm coming for you. And then the traders didn't kill her, which makes it seem like, that's awfully odd.
Strange. Yeah, yeah. Alan, before they leave, tells them if any more innocent blood is shed, they're going to need him up. And a couple of other things. Says, turn the lights off when you're finished. He's pretending he's very angry with them.
Yes.
And they seem to leave in pretty much silence. We see them debrief around the castle. We've got Tom saying, I don't think it was her, but we had to try that line of argument. And Dylan says, well, we don't have to do that. We're in control. And he tells us that he went with the popular vote and it feels like shit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I thought it was maybe a bit naive of him, a bit sort of like to say, we can do the right thing. But no, even though they got it wrong, like, you still probably should just vote in numbers. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was the first time in a while that he actually has voted with the numbers,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, he didn't vote for
yeah. And
Gabby.
right. Well, and speaking of Gabby, she says, I feel like everyone is suspicious of everyone and anyone can be used as a scapegoat. And I'm like, welcome to the game, Gabby. Where have you been?
Yeah. In the billiards room, we've got this moment where Carolyn's sort of grilling Tom a bit. I wondered if she went a bit too hard. She wants to know who had the shield, and he just says he's not telling.
And
And I
she's
think
like,
she tries to trick him. Uh, she's just like staring at him. She, she, she
why you
says,
need to watch the video, people, to see what Matthew was laughing about.
yes. She, yeah, she's trying to catch him out, I think, and she says, "Oh, maybe the shield just left," meaning maybe Sierra had the shield.
Mm-hmm.
And she's right. Tom just denies it, and he's saying, well, he just wants the whole group to be safe, so he's not going to tell anybody. Meanwhile, Sam is trying on a suit of armor helmet in the secret room with Ivar. Dylan joins. They have their own little chat. And meanwhile, on the other side of the wall, we've got Danielle and Carolyn who think they're alone and they're talking together. Danielle comes in going, Carolyn, are we good? I don't know why at this time she's saying that.
Yeah.
Um, Dylan, meanwhile, in the secret room is saying he makes this point, which is probably going to be true. He says either me or Sam are going tonight because he's saying, well, the whole Shield group are effectively safe because they're not going to tell anyone who's got the Shield, and Ivar was in that group, and
Hmm.
Ivar's sitting there just like, yes, I'm not going to tell you, and the traitors will probably keep the women in the game because the women seem to be the targets now. So he's like, look, you and me are the only two other guys. So one of us is probably going to get murdered. Uh, Outside, Carolyn's asking Danielle who has the shield, and she's very coy about it. And she says, "Well, who do you think's got it?" Or she eventually says, "I'll tell you in the turret." Just in the nick, Dylan almost catches her saying that by the looks
Yes.
of it. He appears out from the door, and it could be a really awkward moment for the women, but Danielle sort of turns it around on him and says, "Hmm, that was suspicious. That's strange that you were in that little room with Ivar and Sam." So suddenly Dylan has to be defensive.
Yeah. Now, interestingly, before he does that, when they overhear someone laughing, when the men overhear
Hmm.
someone laughing, Ivar says, "Oh, they probably don't know how to come in here." And I'm like, "Well, if only you knew." But then it occurs to me, didn't at least Danielle admit to having been in the room
Yeah, yeah,
earlier
yeah.
in the season?
Yeah, she has, yeah.
So, oh, shockingly, Ivar is out of the loop.
Yeah. Also, he could have used that moment. I mean, I don't know how easy it was, but they could have said, "Hey, there's people laughing at there. Let's like creep to the door and listen to what
Yeah.
they're saying." Like they really could have caught Danielle and Carolyn
Oh,
there,
yeah.
but they don't do that. Sorry, Dylan in his interviews talking about still being suspicious of Gabby. I have no
Hmm.
idea why. I don't. Yeah, I don't know why he keeps voting for her. Um, I don't know what his rationale behind it is.
Yeah.
And now he's even suspicious of Brittany and actual traitor Danielle. And he wonders
Yeah.
if the way she shakes all the time is a bit fake.
Yeah. So I've had a few people ask me about this on Blue Sky, like, what's up with all her shaking? And I hesitate to comment on it too much because I mean, it could be a medical condition
Yeah.
for all I know. It could be that she's always cold in there and therefore she's shivering.
It's
It,
Scotland.
yeah,
It's
it could
cold
be,
all the time.
it could be nerves. It could be emotions. I don't know what it is. And so, like I said, I hesitate to comment on it. It doesn't look good, but if she's doing it all the time,
Mm.
then I feel like people have just come to accept it.
Yeah. And Dylan is not the first player to mention it. Other people
Right.
have referenced it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I just assume it's half nervous for real, half
Hmm.
using it to pretend to be more nervous than she is. I don't know. Um, Dylan also says something about, he says, "Oh, she shakes. Is that all pretend?"
Hmm.
And acknowledges that she is a gamer. And I sort of, I'm a bit torn about this, saying like, "Oh, she might be a traitor because she comes from Big Brother."
Yeah.
And part of me thinks, well, so what? Why does that make her likely to be a traitor? Like a non-gamer could equally, unless he's thinking the producers have chosen her as a traitor because she'll be good at it because she's played games like Big Brother. It just makes me think of people who get eliminated on these shows
Right.
because of the job that they have or their life
Yes.
outside. Like, you're a doctor. That means we would never suspect you. That means you are a traitor.
Yes.
Is it a little
Yeah.
bit of that? I'm not sure.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, about half the players, I didn't do a count, are gamers of one type or another.
Yeah.
Or like even Dylan, he's never played a game like this before, but he has watched it forever. So I would consider him a gamer too,
Hmm.
And um, so yeah, you got to be careful when you're making those accusations. I mean, in this case, it's right.
Yeah. In the turret, then we've got Danielle. Well, first of all, just sort of in our interview before we really get there, she knows the other players think that the last traitor or traitors are female. Carolyn realizes the same thing is happening, and yeah, Danielle, I get she now is speaking again as if she really wants to get to the end with Carolyn and share the money,
Yes.
and I don't know whether it's all fake or if she really believes it, or I can't judge it.
Yeah.
when they do meet in the turret, then Danielle tells Carolyn the truth that Sierra had the shield. Carolyn then says, "Well, that's not what I heard," because of course she asked Tom, and Tom just
Right.
flat out denied it. And Danielle is like, "No, no, it was in the bear. She snatched it. She didn't discuss
Hmm.
it. I'm telling you the truth." So I think Carolyn believes her by the end, but where they're interrupted by Alan knocking at the door, and of course he's come to tell them that they could murder, as always, tonight, or they have the option to seduce a player. And he tells them they have to make their minds up quickly. Off he goes and leaves them to it.
Yeah.
Danielle wants to seduce.
Yeah, as they were talking immediately, I was live posting about it on Blue Sky, and I was my first inclination was murder. Always murder. Do not recruit unless you have to. We've talked about this before. There's no reason to do so. Carolyn's right, Danielle's wrong. They don't need any more traitors. And then, as there was ongoing discussion, and then Danielle also said, in discussion on Blue Sky, and Danielle said, well, with all the focus on there probably being a woman traitor, they should recruit and essentially sacrifice someone. I was like, okay, that makes sense. Like, grab a woman, recruit her, throw her under the bus. Haha, look, we've shown that there's a woman. Now we can move on. At least it did make sense until she pushed to recruit Brittany, which is fine. Brittany has suspicion on her. Okay, great. Recruit Brittany and throw her under the bus. But then she kept talking and said, and it made it clear she sees her as a partner, not
Yeah.
a sacrificial lamb. And then it gets to the whole thing like, I even typed, "Do you think Carolyn is stupid?" Before Carolyn said on the show, "Do you think I'm stupid?" Uh, you know, and it's another example, as we've been talking about all episode, of Danielle talking out of both sides of her mouth. I want to get to the end with Carolyn. I okay, I want to recruit a woman to take suspicion off of us. Okay, but I want that woman to be Brittany, who we can partner up with. Wait, what? And it's like you can't throw someone to the wolves and be a partner with them. It's if you're gonna do the sacrificial lamb thing, then you pick Gabby. I mean, honestly, from a game perspective, the best thing is to recruit Brittany and throw her under the bus. That is the best thing from a game perspective. Danielle, I do not think is going to be capable of doing that. I don't think she has it in her to do that, which is an emotional issue. But this whole conversation, it makes no sense. She talks about Brittany being game savvy as if Brittany could help them. And it's like, well, which is it? What is going on here?
Yeah. Yeah. I had the same thought process as you. Uh, and this whole scene is just them arguing back and forth of Carolyn saying, well,
Mm-hmm.
I do think Daniel's right that they should recruit. But my initial reaction was the same as, sorry, did I say the wrong name yet? There. I think Danielle's right and they should recruit.
Yeah.
But for the first few moments, I was with Carolyn and thought, yeah, just keep
Yeah.
murdering. And she says, it's been hard enough trying to get along just you and me. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought, yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and that's where I was too with all this back and forth. And so then, yeah, after thinking it through a bit, I was like, well, if they don't recruit here, the others will probably still target a woman.
Yeah.
Now, from Carolyn's perspective, she's probably okay. So, really, I can see Carolyn's perspective of saying, no, let's just murder, because they're going to come for Danielle before they come for Carolyn.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I did think Danielle could have just let Carolyn believe what she wants to believe and gone, okay, fine, more murder. And
Mm-hmm.
then tried to get people to vote Carolyn out, but I think that would be really difficult to do.
Right, right. And so, from Carolyn's perspective, whatever happens, happens. But if we think ahead a bit, I really believe for Carolyn's overall game, they would need to get Danielle at exactly the right time. They would need to banish her during the time frame where she still would admit in front of everyone to being a traitor.
Yeah.
But then Carolyn would be forced to blackmail unless it is timed perfectly for the last banishment before they stop giving out information, because that would be heading into like final six, I guess, depending on how it all works out. Final six, final five. And so it would be tough to do, to be able to manipulate things from Carolyn's perspective. So Danielle goes right when she needs her to, and she doesn't have to blackmail someone new.
Yeah. Um, yes, that you're right. That makes sense. I mean, I guess, well, they obviously do this deliberately. Alan quite deliberately says, make your minds up quickly. And they are just sort of thrust into this sort of,
Right.
although they might have thought before now
They
that
should have been thinking
recruitment is a
about it.
possibility.
Yeah.
So, um, they talk about Dolores and they're like, nah, she's never gonna agree
Right.
to it. And even if she did, she'd be bad at it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is essentially where the episode ends, right? They're going back and forth. Danielle insisting, "No, we'll get to the end together." Carolyn saying, "No, there's no way you're gonna yeah, do what you said. You're not gonna recruit Brittany, and then I'm gonna trust both of you." And I think the episode finishes with Carolyn telling us, the viewer, that she does not trust Danielle, which I think is wise.
Yes, I think it's wise, but I also think it's misleading because they always mislead us at the end of episodes, and I have been falling for it. Um, I do think if they do recruit someone like Gabby and manage to get her banished, then the faithfuls will have gotten three traitors. They will likely assume there are either no more originals or just one more, unless Gabby says something on her way out the door, like "I've only been a traitor for 24 hours," or something like
Hmm.
that. Um, you know, if she doesn't, it could help Carolyn hide better. Um, so I'll wait to give my actual prediction is. Um, in the preview, as I mentioned earlier, well, first of all, it will bring another mission that we've already seen in the UK, the giant chessboard.
Mm.
But there are two queens brought, Kate and Parvati.
Yeah, I did not. I don't see the preview, so I didn't know this. That's very cool.
So yeah, Parvati making the crossover from the other NBC owned, Deal or No Deal Island.
That's quite a long way to fly them just to do like a mission. They must be paying them a lot of money.
I mean, they did it for Dr. Will last time.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, yeah, that's right. For his
So
fleeting appearance. So we have got actually a couple of or I say a couple, we've got several listener questions. We might not get to people have been sending in emails, which is fantastic.
right.
We might save some for next episode. I've not taken any from YouTube today. There's a lot of comments on YouTube, which is great. I've been replying to all of them as much as I can. But I think we're mostly looking at emails and sort of Spotify comments and Blue Sky and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. So I have a bunch from Blue Sky. I'm going to try to go against what I normally do and keep my answers short.
Okay,
Because we've been talking for a while here. So if you want me to start, um, I'll
go for
go
it.
with so Gary asked, all my questions are from Blue Sky. So remember, go to Blue Sky. We have good discussions. Anyway, Gary asked, is the inclusion of Carolyn fumbling at breakfast over what Alan was wearing a harbinger for her impending banishment? And I'll just say, I don't think so. I think it was a couple of things. One, I think it was played for humor because of Sandoval's screw up. And two, I think it was played for humor because of people thinking Carolyn is just goofy. So I don't think it's a harbinger of anything. I think it was just a fun scene.
Yeah, I agree. I, I don't think it's gonna come back. It just seemed like she got away with it.
Yeah.
It, again, like I said at the beginning of the episode, I think Carolyn was just Carolyn, and Gabby goes, "Oh, she
Hmm.
passed." Like, I don't
Yeah.
think. I think, yeah, it was edited very carefully to make us feel worried for a moment. I don't think that it had any impact on the players, especially thanks to Tom ruining it. So
Yeah.
maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
It seems like a fairly quick moment. they're not going to remember tomorrow. I
Yeah.
just don't th and Sam was the one leading that. Sam's now made himself look a bit foolish by leading the charge against
Hmm.
Sierra, so I wonder if maybe now people are not really going to listen to Sam so much. So I think it won't cause a problem.
Yeah. Okay. Do you want to go next or you want me to go?
I'll play something a little bit different. We have a voice message that I've
Yay.
been mentioning a lot on the podcast. We had lots of voice memos for the UK season, so it'd be great. And it's all online. You don't have to worry about an expensive phone call to the UK, by the way. So Alan has sent this on memo.fm. That's memo.fm/ the Trader podcast. So let's have a listen to what Alan had to say.
Hey, Matthew. Hey, David. This is Alan here in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So I'm a little torn with the latest episode of Traitors US. Um, of course, my partner and I, we absolutely love the drama. But there's a piece of me when I watch it thinking, why can't this be just regular people, not air quotes celebrities? Because, yeah, the drama is great, but I'm here to watch a game and I want to see gameplay.
Thanks for that, Alan. Now, Alan sent that maybe an episode or two back, actually. So I'm wondering if maybe Alan's opinions changed a little bit since then. We've talked a lot on the podcast before about, celebrities versus
Right.
normies. And generally, I prefer the versions that aren't the reality TV stars. And I think when Alan sent this message, I sort of agreed that maybe there's not. I think a lot of these players talk about their gameplay more than it's actually happening.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think maybe I've seen a little bit more strategizing, and even when they're getting it wrong, I think there are still attempts now to form like alliances, like Danielle and Brittany. Like she knows it's wise to keep her close, and
Hmm.
even the discussion in the turret tonight about recruit versus murder. I think, well, at least I know Danielle sort of messes it up a little bit at the end, but at least there's conscious thought going into weighing
Right.
up their options. So, Alan, you'll have to send me another message to let me know if you've changed your mind at this point.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before. They really are different shows, and if it were up to me, uh, they would do 2 seasons a year.
Yeah.
Not just because I want more traders, but because then you could do kind of what, well, not kind of, exactly what the UK is doing, which is 1 season of normies, 1 season of celebrities. And, I want to see regular people play the game, not just because I'd like to apply and that's the only way I'll ever get on, but just, in general, we want to see it. Now, we are lucky we live in an era where if you take a little effort, you can see the UK version. So therefore people can see the non-celebrities playing. So you're really just watching a show for two different reasons. You want to see, if you're watching US, most of the people who are watching US want to see the former reality stars doing it. I think it's the same with Deal or No Deal Island. Am I watching Deal or No Deal Island for the inherent strategy of it all? No, I'm watching it to see what Parvati and David and Dr. Will and the previous people before are doing. And the other people are kind of side characters until they pop their heads up and do something interesting. But that's a mixed cast, and we've already talked before about problems with mixed casts. So yeah, I had said I'll keep my answers short, so I'll keep that one that short.
Great. And I'll
Uh,
try and do the same. David, you have another message or question?
yes. Yeah, so Josh Goldberg asked, because everyone thinks the remaining traders are women, it has them thinking the next recruit should be a woman. But why are they saying nothing about recruiting Dylan? Is the edit not showing that because basically it's what they're going to do? Like, are they trying to trick us? I have to admit, Josh, I'm not quite sure I understand how recruiting Dylan would help them with the woman situation. Um, you know, Other than he was pushing it, maybe that's what you're talking about. So now you can get him on your side and convert him to stop pushing that. But of course, if he's one of three traders, he might be happy to keep pushing it and just, okay, we'll get rid of one of the traders and
Hmm.
and it'll help me. Um, I do think he would be someone good to work with overall for each of them, but I I still think the only reason to recruit someone now is to throw them under the bus, and in that case, it makes sense to be a woman. I do want to shout out to Josh, who also told me if I need a lie, I could say that he said on Blue Sky he believes the clock in missions is real and not rigged. But he acknowledged that that might be too obvious of a lie. And I said, yes, you're right. I mean, but it's social media, so like you can always find someone who will believe something, anything. But I do appreciate the idea, so thank you for that, Josh.
Yeah. I wonder if Josh means that Dylan is kind of like the ultimate faithful at this point. So if it was maybe it was earlier in the season, like Dylan would be a great choice for recruitment because he'd get away with it. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think there's a trick in editing. I don't think we're being fooled. I don't think Carolyn and Danielle are talking about him and they're just not showing
Yeah,
us it. I think that's too much of like a red herring
yeah,
to the next episode. Suddenly they've recruited him and we had absolutely no idea. So
yeah.
I mean, unless they keep discussing things, the next episode begins with them still
Right.
talking about it. They can't agree, so they end up going, right, fine, we can't agree on Gabby or who is it, Brittany. So fine, let's just pick a guy. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think they're going to do that. Uh, I have one final question for me that's really
Mm-hmm.
relevant to this episode, actually. Even though this is from Annie on Spotify, I think Annie posted this before the episode aired. So Annie's predicted this was going to happen. She says, love the pod. It's been said that the strongest position in the game is to be a faithful who's recruited to traitordom in the game. I've certainly said that a lot on the podcast. If
Mm-hmm.
this is the case, how would you best position yourself as a faithful hoping to get recruited? So thanks for that question, Annie. Yeah, it's a great question. How would you, if you're a faithful, how do you go about making the traitors recruit you? It's tough. I mean, I guess my reaction is figure out who you think they are, keep it a secret as long as you can, don't banish them, and get close to them.
Yeah,
Uh,
cozy up to them.
yeah.
But you also have to take out other traders because that's the only way you're going to get recruited.
Mm,
Um, but yeah,
yeah.
you need to be someone trustworthy who is not going to be someone that's just sacrificed. I mean, there have literally been a recent season, I won't name the country, where someone was saying, I think you're a traitor. I won't say anything, but if it comes time for recruitment, you should recruit me. I don't think you want to go that far.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
it doesn't.
especially,
Yes, doesn't work.
especially since the person that they were talking to was not a traitor. So it was a very strange series of conversations. But I do think, yeah, just get close to them and as much as possible.
Yeah, and I mean it's really easy to say this, but unless you're being recruited as a scapegoat, you're probably being recruited because the traitors think you appear like a faithful and you're not going to get
Right.
banished. So you have to, up to that point, do an amazing job of appearing as a faithful
Yeah.
by, yeah, maybe either by however that is, either getting out other traitors
Hmm.
and looking like a great faithful, or being one of the quiet players who doesn't say too much and gets on with everybody and just sort of quietly coasts through the
Yeah.
competition.
I mean, we may be entering a new era. We'll have to see what next seasons look like, where beginning traders know that recruited traders do better.
Yeah.
So they may not want to be recruiting anyone who looks faithful.
Hmm.
They may only want to recruit people who have suspicion on them.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe that's what I do if I were a trader in one of these is only recruit someone who looks suspicious. So we'll see how the metagame evolves in that regard.
Yeah. Uh,
Um,
yeah,
kind of a related question here. So, well, sort of. Giovanni asks, who should traders take to the end game? So I think that each of them has a different answer for this. If we're talking about Danielle, she would probably think she should take Brittany. And the show has led us to believe that as well. And this is where I had mentioned this earlier. I wish some of those social media restrictions would apply because if it's true that Brittany really did know Danielle was a traitor from day one, then of course Danielle shouldn't take her. But from what we've seen on the show, then of course Danielle should take her. Uh, I just I don't know. Other than Brittany, I'm not sure who she should try to get to the end with, unless she truly believes that she can split the money with Carolyn. But I think Carolyn is always going. If two traitors got to the end and they had to do the split or share game, or I'm sorry, the split or steal game, um, I think Carolyn would steal. I don't think, unless it's the long game here and Carolyn finally, believes her.
Yeah.
But as for Carolyn, I think her best bet would be, oh, there I am making a Freudian slip. Her best bet would be to bring Gabby, from what we've seen. Presuming, they don't recruit and sacrifice her this time, maybe bring Dolores, maybe Dylan. Of course, either of them could take Ivar since he's completely clueless. The only worry about going to the end with Ivar is he could be easily influenced by someone else to turn on them.
Yeah. Uh, I was also thinking about Dolores because I don't think she's playing a particularly savvy game. So,
Yeah.
uh, and I think Ivar, as sort of clueless as he appears, he does seem to have latched on to the idea that the final traitor or traitors must be female. So I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't keep him around. I think Dylan's too. I mean, he's gotten some things wrong, but he generally seems quite clever and
Yeah.
switched on. I wouldn't keep Dylan around if I could help it. So yeah, I'm thinking Dolores, Brittany, um, Gabby.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know how right she is about much.
Right.
Well, she was right about. She did vote for Rob twice in a row and then got him out. So maybe I'm not giving her credit.
Yeah.
Um, do you, was there another?
I have
Do you want
one
to do
more
another question?
question, a quick one, from M. Scoutum. Who do you think they should murder? And I think if they decide to murder, they should take out a guy, obviously. I think Sam has recently been coming out of his shell. It might be time to put him back into one permanently, but then again, he just led the charge against the wrong person. So maybe you keep him in and you take out Dylan, because he is probably the best gamer that is left.
Yeah, I agree. I think Dylan is, mistakes aside, that seems like the more clever gamer.
Yeah.
Get rid of a guy,
Hmm.
keep the woman in the game. I don't think they will murder, but I would murder Dylan. I would have murdered him last
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
Well, that leads nicely on to our predictions and final thoughts then.
Hmm.
So, my prediction, I think they will recruit. I think Carolyn will get her way and they will recruit Gabby. Whether or not Gabby accepts it, I don't know. I can see her turning it down foolishly, or maybe not foolishly. I don't know. So I don't know what the outcome will be. I think they'll go for Gabby. As for banishment, I'm gonna put this out there. I think actually Danielle is out next. I
Oh,
think
wow.
her they're starting to pick up on her because of the Jeremy thing, because they just got Sierra so wrong. They think it's a woman. I think there are a few things adding up that might not make. And Dylan was starting to sort of. He was talking about what she
Hmm.
shakes all the time. Is that fake? Can we? I think maybe Danielle will go.
Okay, well, I am right there with you on recruiting Gabby. I don't think they will be successful in getting her banished. I was going to predict someone else, but you just convinced me. So I was going to say they get things turned around on Sam, but I think you just convinced me that they
Yay!
that they will get Danielle. I will hop on board your predictions because the other thing is we know Carolyn and Gabby have some sort of good relationship. So, as much as Carolyn is worried about Danielle bringing on Brittany and turning on Carolyn, I think Carolyn's going to bring on Gabby and do the exact same thing to Danielle.
Yeah. And also, of course, I should have said this earlier. My prediction for murder was wrong this episode. My prediction for banishment was correct. I predicted that Sierra would go. I predicted
Ooh,
that the coffin argument would come back around. So I'm
I
quite
don't
impressed
remember
with
who I
myself.
predicted for banishment. So,
Um, not Sierra. Haha.
ah, damn it.
Okay, there's the predictions. Do you have any sort of final thoughts, overall things you wanted to say about the episode?
Yeah, even before the other players brought it up, a guy I know on Blue Sky, Andy Martin, he brought up that Danielle and Carolyn shouldn't have murdered a woman, at the beginning of the episode. Um, with two male traitors taken out, the rest should think at least about one of the traitors being a woman, so they should want as many women in there as possible. But as I said, you know, what they really need is the sacrificial lamb if they feel the need to recruit. The other thing is that, you know, if they knew about the Traitors UK season 2, which I'm sure almost none of them do, they could bring up that there doesn't have to be a big mix of genders. However, I think if they bring that up, people are going to be like, sure, okay,
You would say
right.
that, yeah.
Yeah. Now, um, so yeah, with that in mind, I'm leaning towards supporting a mix of what Danielle and Carolyn said. Recruit, but don't recruit Brittany. Recruit Gabby as a sacrifice. But I know that goes against what my prediction was. They would need to ensure there's enough heat on her. And while Dylan has said he suspects Gabby somewhat, I don't know that he's obviously voted for her, but other than that, I don't know how much he's been discussing it. So I think that should at least be what Carolyn says is let's recruit Gabby as a sacrifice. But then I think it goes back to our prediction.
Yeah.
Well, your prediction that I latched on.
Yeah. I think I've probably said everything I wanted to say about the episode. I will do a winner's prediction. I don't know if I did this already.
Hmm.
I think Carolyn will win as a sole traitor. I
Yeah,
think she'll make it to herself.
I'm still hoping for that and think it will happen. So
Yeah. Uh, Now we have been playing our game of deception before we try and predict what the other person may have lied about or is yet to lie about. David, where can we find you on social media?
well, I am, of course, all over social media and reality TV podcasting. Of course, I will continue being right here with you on the Traitors for the rest of the season. Um,
As far as you
beginning,
know, unless I
yeah,
banish you.
oh no, you can't banish me. I'm a traitor. Look at me. Um, beginning this coming week, we will be back talking about U.S. Survivor. Me and my podcast partner for that show on the Rob Has a Podcast Network. The name of the show is Why Blank Lost. So that'll be a preview of this coming Survivor season, and then of course every week after that we will be there. As far as other things, I have been posting at least 3 now. It has gone up back to kind of usual levels. 3 reality TV short videos every day on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram as at David Bloomberg TV. That number may go up further just because there's more reality shows coming. There's a big overlap here. Right now, there's a mix of the Traitors US, Beast Games, which just finished, but I have some videos left to post, Deal or No Deal Island, the new show Extracted, where one player is out in the wilderness surviving and 2 family members are watching from a base camp, and only they can pull the surviving person from the game. I have another one from the Joe Schmo show, the one I talked about here.
I'm just laughing at how difficult that is to say, the Joe Schmo show.
Yes, yeah. I have Survivor and Big Brother flashbacks to older seasons. And starting this week, I also plan to post mini Why Blank Lost videos for Australian Survivor, which begins in just a few days. So again, lots of overlap. And Australian Survivor, they're taking it like British TV. They're doing 3 episodes a week, at least to start. I think later on, they'll probably cut it down to 2. But that's a lot for me to be posting. I haven't decided yet if those will be YouTube shorts or just YouTube videos. We'll have to see. And of course, you can find all my accounts at Linktree/David Bloomberg with a dot before the EE in the URL. Or you can find me directly on Blue Sky and ask questions and engage in conversations as long as you don't start with wrong, where I'm at David Bloomberg. And just went over 4,100 followers there. So it's continuing to grow in part thanks to the Traitors.
Fantastic. And you can, again, if you're always listening to the podcast, but you still haven't followed, it's really easy to find David because, well, first of all, there's this thing called the internet and search engines, but also in the episode description, there's a link to directly to David's link tree. And as for the Trader, you can follow on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at the Trader Podcast. And David, you helped you had faith in me last week. I was aiming to get to 1,000 subscribers on YouTube by the end of the season. It's happened already. I
I
surpassed a
know.
thousand.
I
I,
know.
I need your American confidence. See, it's my British sort of I don't know what the word is. My sort of I'm too reserved and unambitious, so I need to borrow from you. Thanks everybody who subscribed. Hooray!
Yay.
I've been saying 1,000's a nice number to get to on YouTube because I can't sort of make any money back that I spend on the podcast. And so far, I'm just going to have a look. It's working. Now I've made 68 cents from
Oh,
YouTube.
wow.
Hooray! 68 cents.
I didn't
It's
know that you could do it at 1,000. I had to get to like tens of thousands before I was finally able to make a few pennies on YouTube. But also, I did YouTube Shorts mostly, so I wonder
yeah.
if that has something to do with it.
There are different rules
Yeah,
if you're posting shorts as opposed to long
yeah.
videos. So any podcasters listening, send me a message if you want to know more about that. But thanks for subscribing. That's fantastic. And you can, of course, leave comments on YouTube. Lots of comments on all the episodes. Lots of
Hmm.
views. People discussing things that are happening that maybe David and I miss or different thoughts and theories. So you should get involved. And you can send us a message at the tradeartpodcast at gmail.com if you want to email something a lot longer. And of course, you could do what Alan did. You could leave a voice message at memo.fm/the Tradeart Podcast, and we get to hear your lovely voice on the pod. A final thing before we finish our game of betrayal, I have to say thank you to a few people who donated to the coffee.com page for the pod. We've got Alice from California, and actually, Alice, I missed from the mentions last week. She had donated before that, and I missed her out. I'm so sorry, Alice. So, Alice, you're number one on the list today. Thank you very much. Jack also sent an email. Jack, I will reply to you, and put in a donation, said, "Love the podcast. Thanks for all your time and effort." An anonymous supporter put in some money. Thank you, anonymous person. Natalie from Quebec said, "I've been listening to you from the beginning. Love the show. Appreciate your coverage of all the series." And she says, "I do think you need to watch and cover Les Traitors Quebec at some point. It's so good. Thanks for all your work." So thank you to all
We
of those
we
lovely
just
people.
need a closed caption version, an
Yes,
English language closed caption version.
which I may have tracked down. More on
Ooh.
that soon. So thank you to all those people. That was they visited ko-fi.com/Matthew Keeley. And if you
And keep
wanted to,
visiting there, even though he's made 68 cents
even
from
though I've made
YouTube.
68 cents on YouTube now, if you wanted to chip
Yeah.
in the same on coffee.com, that would be lovely. David, we've been trying to betray each other in our game, The Trade Our Traitor. I think you have. Yeah, I know you've lied to me. You're very good at this. Too good. I don't like it. And I did
Except
lie to
last week
you. Except
when I
last
went
week
easy on you.
when you went easy on me. Um, I I'm gonna begin. I really don't think I'm gonna catch you today. I have two thoughts, and I think they're both wrong. One was about the literal goat on the show The Goat, where they have to speak into a goat. And I thought, this is so nuts. But it's so nuts, I don't think you would make that up. So I don't think that is it. I'm gonna go for you said that Tom was on The Masked Singer, which I didn't know. Um, and I thought that's quite a big risk to take because I worked on The Masked Singer UK. It's a totally different company that made US, but I thought David would probably think that I would know about The Masked Singer US, and he wouldn't lie about something there. But I think maybe Tom was on it, but he was in a different costume than you said. He wasn't in the diver helmet. I'm gonna do a Dylan. I'm gonna say I'm going for this, even though I don't think it's right. Was your lie about Tom being in a diver costume on The Masked Singer?
No. And what's funny, sorry, what's funny is my plan was to make my lie about Tom on The Masked Singer. Okay, I came into this podcast fully intending to tell you that he made it 6 weeks in, when and then be aha, he only made it 2. So I would have kind of given you partial credit for at least getting that. But instead, something came up in the moment, and you joked about it being my lie,
Oh no.
and it was. LeBron James was not in the it's got to be the shoes. That was Michael Jordan. And the hint should have been I would never say something about LeBron James, but I would about Michael Jordan. And by the way, I looked it up. It was Spike Lee. Spike Lee was the one who was
Oh
saying,
yeah, I know who
and I
Spike
couldn't
Lee
remember.
is.
Uh, but
Well,
but
I
yes.
think this I've been discriminated against for my Britishness, and this was an unfair. And in the traitors, you have to play fair, David.
Oh
You have
yes,
to play with integrity. So that's rotten of you to do such a thing.
I know. I know. It is, and I didn't know that they didn't have that commercial by you. I mean, it was a Nike commercial. I thought even you guys knew about basketball.
Nah,
So
if we do, I don't. But it's
yeah,
nah, I don't think it's a thing here. I mean basketball is a thing here, but
yeah.
okay, well done. You caught me. You're back to your usual ways.
So let's hope I can go back to my usual ways of catching your lie. I don't think so. I'm going to say the same thing as you, but I think you did something sneaky because I have said multiple times, including in comments on YouTube, I don't watch the episode recap. And you started off by talking about, oh, they did great CGI with flames and stuff like that in the recap at the beginning. And I'm like, he knows I don't watch it. And I don't feel like they would do something like that. And I couldn't catch anything else. So I'm going to say it was about the recap, that you were just flat out lying because you knew I don't watch that.
I was really sure you were gonna catch me today, and I'd done a terrible job of it. But you didn't catch me. I didn't do a terrible job.
Oh, damn
No,
it.
that
That kind of
really
focused my
happened.
attention, the whole thing. And was it the
No,
exploding pen?
no, my pen
Okay.
exploded. Um, Yeah, no, the episode really starts with this hilariously CGI'd, fakey traitor silhouettes walking to the castle, and there's things are on. It's nuts. It's so fun. It's like a Marvel movie or something. Um, so I would like you to go back and watch that because it's fun. My lie, I hadn't prepared a lie, so I had to think on my feet, and I threw this in, and I thought he knows this is not true. He's going to catch me. When you were talking about, I snuck it into what I thought your lie was. When you were talking about Tom and the Masked Singer, I
Hmm.
made up, oh, Bob the Drag Queen was on the Masked Singer. And Bob the Drag Queen was not on the Masked. If Bob the Drag Queen was on the Masked Singer, I accidentally told the truth, but I just made that up. Um, and I got away
Now I'm
with
going to have to
it.
Google it. Hold on. I'm going to not let me Google it here. Was Bob, whoop, not Bog, Bob the Drag Queen. Google fills in to say, was Bob the Drag Queen on Drag Race? Well, that seems kind of like an obvious question on Masked Singer.
If it's
No, Bob the Drag Queen was not on Masked Singer.
yeah,
But Bob Saget was on the show as the Squiggly Monster. This is the wonderful AI overview that it gives. I didn't ask about Bob Saget. Why would I care about Bob Saget?
maybe it thinks
But
you've mixed
yes,
up the two Bobs.
yeah, Bob Saget and Bob the Drag Queen frequently mixed
Very
up.
similar.
Very similar. Can't tell them apart in the lineup. Um,
Well,
so when you said it, I was like, part of it, I almost made a comment about, but he wouldn't be able to wear his costumes. How would he do that? But then I thought, it actually would be kind of a fun show for Bob the Drag Queen to be on.
yes.
So you got me.
We were good traitors today, and we were bad faithful today. We were bad
Hmm.
traitor hunters. David, thank you so much for joining me for episode 8. We'll be back next time, episode 9.
Yes.
We've only got 3 episodes left of the season. So we're getting to the very exciting part. And until
And the
then,
reunion where they all yell at each
oh,
other.
well, of course, I can't wait for that too.
Yeah.
Until that time, everybody, thank you for listening and keep us on your radar.
And stay traitorous.